Afternoon, America. Brian James Blem here, and welcome you back to another episode of What the Fuck's Up. And what do I want to talk about today? I'm going to talk about government, basic government, and sort of show you how, basic government, how we divide up our government, has huge implications, for foreign policy and how other nations behave. And so what is government, first of all? What is the basic essence, right? Government is a repressive tool, right? We as human beings are social animals. We come together so that we can benefit from one another so that we can continue the species, right? For example, I can't just pop out a baby, there it is, and continue the Bleem name into the future for posterity, right? Can't do it alone. I actually need a female member of the species to join with me to do that. And so we are social animals. We have to coexist and work together in order to advance the species into the future. Without that, we all simply die and go away. And so what is government? Government at its basest essence is sort of this arrangement between those of us who come together to coexist, to regulate and govern our behavior. So in that sense, it's a repressive apparatus. It has the power to compel us to do things or not do things, right? It's a social contract. It's created by a social contract. So the Founding Fathers wanted this social contract to minimize the impacts of a federal centralized government on human beings' day-to-day life, while the federal government focused on big things like, national defense, protecting the nation as a whole, and creating a free trade zone within the United States of America where people could flourish and live in peace with their respective states, then performing other functions like education, social welfare, health care, transportation. Of course, the federal government linking the states does a lot of transportation as well. But in terms of government, what does our government do? All governments have to have some level of funding in order to do what they do, right? And so the United States government, the Israeli government, the Argentinian government all have this basic amount of revenue. And in our system of government, and the Israeli system of government as well, they have the Knesset, I'm not sure how to pronounce it really, but they have their parliamentary system of government. So we all elect our representatives to govern on our behalf. And that part of that governance is deciding how we're going to divide this pie, right? Because we have a basic amount of money, and we have to decide what we're going to spend it on. How much do we use for education? How much for healthcare? How much for law enforcement, courts? How much for transportation, infrastructure, national defense, all of that wonderful stuff that our governments pay for in, sort of enforcing this social contract whereby we give government the power to protect us in exchange, for it's being able to generate tax revenue. Now, one thing I'm opposed to, if you watch my show, you all know this, is the direct taxation of the individual labor. Taxing your labor, taking your money from your hard work. There are many ways our government could raise revenue. For example, excise taxes, tariffs are a huge way the Trump administration is bringing in new revenue to the United States. You can have sales taxes, right? A tax on consumption. And that way, if I don't want to pay taxes, I simply don't buy the new Ferrari, right? And so, you can minimize a consumption tax by saying no tax on food, which would be wonderful for everybody because there shouldn't be a tax on food. And you can tax certain items more, specific items less. We have, the excise tax. If you want to import goods, then you can pay that tax, and that's your choice, right? We would have that choice. It opens up more freedom. But when we take your income, right, we take your blood, sweat, and tears, there's no choice there, folks. There's no choice whatsoever. In fact, that places limitations upon you because you have a smaller pie. Your individual family has a smaller pie with which to divide and to determine how to spend on what, right? And so, government, folks. Why the United States needs to get out of the business of supporting everybody else in the world is because they have a huge, as foreign aid has a huge impact on our pie, right? But not only that, it has huge impact on what foreigners think of us and how they view the American people and the President of the United States. When I was in Brazil, driving around, I picked up a couple of hitchhikers. They were a couple from Denmark. I believe it was Denmark. And we had, fantastic political debates, right? We talked politics, something you can't really do in the United States anymore, because if you're a pro-Trumper, then, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, you're this, you're that, you're other. Tired of these people, right? And so, we had really good debates, and they said, well, then how come everybody in Europe, how come all of the European leaders hate Donald Trump? Well, the example I'm going to use now is the same example I used with this couple from Denmark, and they both said, wow, I never thought of it that way. That makes perfect sense, right? How does foreign aid impact other countries and their response to the United States, which does have an impact on U.S. elections and U.S. domestic and foreign policy? We shouldn't have foreign countries determining U.S. domestic or foreign policy. Those should be decisions left to the people of the United States of America through their elections, right? And so let's look at this pie chart here. Now, we're going to use Israel as an example. Now, for those of you who, think, you can't talk bad about Israel. If you talk bad about Israel, you're an anti-Semite. That is ludicrous, folks. Israel is not, it's not, a lot of people refer to it as a Jewish state, but it is not a theocracy. Right? The nation of Israel is about 80% of Jewish population, 20% Arab. I don't know what the breakdown is, Christian, Muslim, Arab. But the Arabs living within the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, I should say, have voting rights. They are citizens, unless, of course, they live in that part of Jerusalem that was annexed by the nation of Israel. But when that happened, the state of Israel did offer the Arab populations living in that part of Jerusalem citizenship. Most of them declined. So Israel is not a theocracy. Right? A lot of people refer to it as a Jewish nation. It's a government, folks. It's got a government. It's got a political system whereby their people elect people to office to run their government. Criticizing the Israeli government does not make you an anti-Semite, right? Now, if you're attacking the people of Jewish faith, that might make you an anti-Semite, but that's not what's happening here, folks. A lot of people in the United States have become very, very critical of the Israeli government, and you get the Anti-Defamation League, right? The ADL coming out and labeling people anti-Semites, and so people just need to get over it. You need to stop using this inflammatory language, right? This dog whistle language to shut people up, because your censorship will no longer work. But anyway, with respect to Israel, the United States of America spends about $3.3 billion. This was in 2022, right? $3.3 billion of your hard-earned tax dollars just in 1 year sent to Israel for their national defense, right? Now, this breaks down, Israel's got a population of roughly 10 million people right now. in U.S. terms. So that breaks down, to about $300 per Israeli citizen, whether they're of Jewish faith or whether they're of Arabic descent. Doesn't matter. $300 per person. Doesn't sound like a lot, folks, but there are about 195 countries in the world. 195 countries in the world. Not to mention all of the different organizations like the World Health Organization, the NATO, the United Nations, all of these other international globalist organizations that the United States sends billions to every year. And just look at how many billions of dollars have been wasted on that corrupt government in the state of Ukraine, right? And so what we have here, folks, what happens? You have the United States pumping billions of dollars into Israel. So Israel's dividing its pie. What can Israel do? It can say, oh yeah, we want more infrastructure, right? And so what it does is it basically, because the United States is pushing more money into Israel and Israel's defense, it can readjust these lines internally and provide its own citizens better goods and services than you get here at home, right? For example, the life expectancy in Israel is about 82.8 years. In the United States, it's 79.6 years, right? You're spending money to help them live longer than you do. Okay, if you look at the infant mortality, it's 2.9 in Israel. In the United States, it's 4.8, nearly double, right? And so deaths of infants under 5 years of age, 3 per, 1,000. They're 3.7 in Israel and 5.7 in the United States. They have a better life. They have ostensibly, based on statistics, a better outcome than Americans do, while we're pumping all of our money into their national defense. Another problem with the United States pumping all of this foreign military aid into the nation of Israel is it has a tendency to make Israel more bellicose. It doesn't have to get as along with its neighbors as well as it maybe otherwise should. It can engage in behaviors that maybe it shouldn't engage in because it creates conflict and war, because they know they got a big check coming at the day, they got a big ship of missiles coming in, they've got whatever the case may be. The United States, we need to take a serious look at what we're doing in terms of our foreign military aid. The military-industrial complex in the United States loves this because they're the ones who make tons of money. They're the ones getting bloody, filthy rich off of your blood, sweat, and tears at the expense of you, because the Israelis are given a better life expectancy than you do, and at the expense of course, a more prosperous and peaceful world. The United States needs to readjust its priorities. Make America great again isn't a slight against Israel, right? It's a slight against the United States muddling in the rest of the world and not focusing its attention on people within its own state territorial boundaries in an effort to make their lives better so we live as long, if not longer, than the Israelis. And with that, I'm going to say peace.